Chapter 26. The future of marriage. When God created Adam and Eve, He made them in the image of Himself and His Son, as we examined earlier. One of the purposes of the male and female relationship was to teach the angels about deeper aspects of the father and son relationship. 1 Corinthians 11:10. As we have examined, God's design for Adam and Eve was to remain forever. It is evident that the earth is a finite size, and that procreation would have stopped at some point. Consider also another line of evidence.
Those who walk even as Christ walked, who are patient, gentle, kind, meek, and lowly in heart, those who yoke up with Christ and lift His burdens, who yearn for souls as He yearned for them, these will enter into the joy of their Lord. They will see with Christ the travail of His soul, and be satisfied. Heaven will triumph, for the vacancies made in heaven by the fall of Satan and his angels will be filled by the redeemed of the Lord. Review and Herald, May 29, 1900, paragraph 12. It was God's purpose to repopulate heaven with the human family if they would show themselves obedient to His every word. Christ Triumphant, 26.1.
These quotes tell us that the vacancy created by the departure of the fallen angels will be filled with the saved. This is a specific number of people. When this number is made up, there will be no more people procreated, and Ellen White indicates there will be no children born in the new earth.
There are men today who express their belief that there will be marriages and births in the new earth, but those who believe the Scriptures cannot accept such doctrines. The doctrine that children will be born in the new earth is not a part of the sure word of prophecy. It is presumption to indulge in suppositions and theories regarding matters that God has not made known to us in His Word. We need not enter into speculation regarding our future state. Last Day Events, 290.4 and 5.
Jesus, in speaking to this question, makes this point.
And Jesus answering said unto them, The children of this world marry, and are given in marriage. But they which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world, and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry, nor are given in marriage. Neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. Luke 20:34-36, King James Version.
Commenting directly on this verse, Ellen White states,
The Sadducees reasoned that if the body is to be composed of the same particles of matter in its immortal as in its mortal state, then when raised from the dead it must have flesh and blood, and must resume in the eternal world the life interrupted on earth. In that case they concluded that earthly relationships would be resumed, husband and wife would be reunited, marriages consummated, and all things go on the same as before death, the frailties and passions of this life being perpetuated in the life beyond. In answer to their questions, Jesus lifted the veil from the future life. In the resurrection, He said, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. He showed that the Sadducees were wrong in their belief. Their premises were false. Ye do err, He added, not knowing the Scriptures nor the power of God. He did not charge them, as He had charged the Pharisees, with hypocrisy, but with error of belief. The Desire of Ages, 605.3 and 4.
Clearly the Sadducees had a false view of the afterlife. Jesus exposes this understanding. Some people have used ideas of the afterlife to imagine they will marry someone else and live with them forever. Others wish to fixate on the privileges of the sexual union lasting forever, making this more important than the relationship itself, giving marriage an earthly or sensual focus. Ellen White provides a very forceful response to these notions.
The enemy of souls has gained much when he can lead the imagination of one of Jehovah's chosen watchmen to dwell upon the possibilities of association in the world to come with some woman whom he loves, and of their raising up a family. We need no such pleasing pictures. All such views originate in the mind of the tempter. We have the plain assurance of Christ that in the world to come the redeemed neither marry nor are given in marriage, neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. It is presented to me that spiritual fables are taking many captive. Their minds are sensual, and unless a change comes, this will prove their ruin. To all who are indulging these unholy fancies, I would say, stop. For Christ's sake, stop right where you are. You are on forbidden ground. Repent, I entreat of you, and be converted. Letter 231, 1903. Medical Ministry, pages 100 and 101.
Two things which the spirit of prophecy says will not be in heaven. 1. Couples getting married. 2. Couples having children. In a letter written in 1904, Ellen White makes this statement.
Had the Sadducees understood the Scriptures, they would have known that the marriage relation, as instituted in Eden, will not exist in paradise. Manuscript 28, 1904.
If Ellen White had intended to state that the marriage relationship would not exist at all in heaven, she would have stated this. Had the Sadducees understood the Scriptures, they would have known that the marriage relation will not exist in paradise. But she qualifies the statement by stating, as constituted in Eden. We have seen that there will be no children born in the new earth. This means the aspect of marriage that involves being fruitful and multiplying will not exist. This would be a change in the marriage institution, and Ellen White's comment actually suggests that the marriage institution will exist, but not as it was instituted in Eden. There are some verses in the book of Isaiah which speak of children after this present world.
They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth children for trouble, for they shall be the descendants of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. Isaiah 65:23, New King James Version.
We know that little children that have died will be raised and brought to their mothers in heaven.
The living righteous are changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. At the voice of God they were glorified. Now they are made immortal, and with the risen saints are caught up to meet their Lord in the air. Angels, gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Little children are borne by holy angels to their mother's arms. Friends long separated by death are united, never more to part, and with songs of gladness ascend together to the city of God. The Great Controversy, 645.1.
There will be a multitude of babies that died over the centuries due to persecution that will be reunited with their mothers in heaven. There also will be miscarriages that angels will restore to their mothers. What a glorious reunion that will be! If both parents are saved, we would not suggest that the child becomes the property of the mother only, but both mother and father will have the joyful task of raising their child in the heavenly atmosphere. It is also possible that some women will be pregnant at the time just before the second coming, as remote as that possibility seems, but in such cases the child would be born in heaven and raised there. These cases would answer to the verses about babies and children in heaven.
In that day, the wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. The calf and the yearling will be safe with the lion, and a little child will lead them all. The cow will graze near the bear. The cub and the calf will lie down together. The lion will eat hay like a cow. The baby will play safely near the hole of a cobra. Yes, a little child will put its hand in a nest of deadly snakes without harm. Nothing will hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for as the waters fill the sea, so the earth will be filled with people who know the Lord. Isaiah 11:6-9.
We need to be careful not to speculate about the future state or make assertions that are not proved by inspiration. But we do need to harmonize these statements in Isaiah with what Ellen White has spoken about. We must also reconcile all this with the issue of the divine pattern we spoke about in the previous chapter. In this context, let us consider this verse.
But there is one thing I want you to know. The head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. 1 Corinthians 11:3.
Do we conclude that the headship of God over Christ is eternal, but the headship of man over his woman is temporary? As we mentioned in the last chapter, how then would the example in the image reflect the original? If the image is transitory, then what reflection does this cast on the original? Is there a connection to the statement of Paul that a woman is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives, and a couple who have lived together on the earth in one marriage union, who then both go to heaven? Will the divine pattern still apply, or having lived in a divine pattern their whole lives, they are then arbitrarily made co-equal with the headship removed, so there is no more source and channel operating? God would have to apply the principle of force to make these changes. Men and women that have lived together for 40 or 50 years will continue to relate to each other in the same way as they have on earth. Their mannerisms will be the same, their character unchanged. Consider what inspiration says of God's original design in marriage.
God celebrated the first marriage. Thus, the institution has for its originator the Creator of the universe. Marriage is honorable, Hebrews 13:4. It was one of the first gifts of God to man, and it is one of the two institutions that, after the fall, Adam brought with him beyond the gates of paradise. When the divine principles are recognized and obeyed in this relation, marriage is a blessing. It guards the purity and happiness of the race. It provides for man's social needs. It elevates the physical, the intellectual, and the moral nature. Patriarchs and Prophets 46.
God designed that marriage was to be a guard to the human race. Marriage is also one of the greatest blessings ever given to mankind.
And at the beginning of his public ministry, Christ gave his decided sanction to the institution that had been sanctioned in Eden. Thus, he declared to all that he will not refuse his presence on marriage occasions, and that marriage, when joined with purity and holiness, truth and righteousness, is one of the greatest blessings ever given to the human family. Signs of the Times, August 30th, 1899.
The Bible says they shall neither marry nor be given in marriage. But what about a couple that remained married for life on this earth and did not remarry? What if they only had the one partner during this life? If they come up together in the resurrection, they would not need to marry as they were married already. In the heavenly realm, they would not resume the position of a husband or wife like here on earth for the purpose of raising a family, because there will be no procreation after the second coming. So what then did Jesus mean about not marrying in heaven? The question put to Jesus about marriage in the afterlife was about a woman who married 7 times. His questioners refer to the woman and the 7 men as they.
In the resurrection, therefore, when they shall rise, whose wife shall she be of them? For the 7 had her to wife. Mark 12:23, King James Version.
When Jesus responded to this as recorded in Mark, his subjects were also described using the same word they.
For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. Mark 12:25, New King James Version.
When Jesus mentions the word they, is he referring to all redeemed humanity, or is he referring to the they mentioned in the question of the Sadducees from verse 23? Can you see the point? Is Jesus telling us that those who have had multiple partners on earth will not marry or be given in marriage? Or is Jesus saying that none of the human race will have a divine pattern relationship in heaven, but all are like the angels? In other words, is Jesus speaking of a specific case related to the question of remarriage, or is he speaking universally of the eradication of marriage/divine pattern relationships altogether? The accounts of this story in Matthew and Mark are almost identical, but the story in Luke adds more details.
There were therefore 7 brethren, and the first took a wife, and died without children. And the second took her to wife, and he died childless. And the third took her, and in like manner the 7 also. And they left no children, and died. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of them is she? For 7 had her to wife. And Jesus answering said unto them, The children of this world marry, and are given in marriage. But they which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world, and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry, nor are given in marriage. Neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. Luke 20:29-36. King James Version.
When we read the words,
They which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world, and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry, nor are given in marriage.
to most, it appears that the words of Christ apply to all the saved human race. But again, what does the term they mean? Is this the whole human race, or is it those who are being considered in the question of the Sadducees? Now, if you come to these passages in the framework of Neoplatonism, or you consider marriage to be a necessary evil to keep the human species alive, then the answer will be obvious. It must apply to all human beings. Add to this the fact that if a person subscribes to the Trinity doctrine, the image of source and channel is not relevant and needs no memorial or preservation. The other thing that is interesting about this passage in Luke is the phrase, the children of this world. Most people translate this as the sons of this age, which give a sense of time frame, meaning this is what people do now. What is interesting is that Luke uses this exact same phrase in another place as a contrast to the children of light.
And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. Luke 16:8, King James Version.
The case which the Sadducees put to Jesus was most likely a hypothetical question, unless this woman was the queen of all widow-makers. E.J. Waggoner also concludes this question is hypothetical.
First of all, it must be premised that Jesus exactly and completely answered the objection which the Sadducees raised. They denied the resurrection and brought a hypothetical case to show, as they supposed, that the doctrine of the resurrection could not be reconciled with the teachings of Moses. Thus they hoped to put Jesus to confusion before the multitude, who revered Moses as a prophet of God. E.J. Waggoner, Signs of the Times, July 7, 1887.
It is possible the Sadducees were referencing the case of a woman in the apocryphal book of Tobit, but this does not say the 7 men were brothers. Also, the woman married an 8th man and had children to him.
Then the young man answered the angel, I have heard, brother Azarias, that this maid hath been given to 7 men, who all died in the marriage chamber. Tobit 6:13. It came to pass the same day that in Ecbatane, a city of Media, Sarah, the daughter of Raguel, was also reproached by her father's maids, because that she had been married to 7 husbands, whom Asmodeus the evil spirit had killed, before they had lain with her. Dost thou not know, said they, that thou hast strangled thine husbands? Thou hast had already 7 husbands, neither wast thou named after any of them. Tobit 3:7-8, King James Version Apocrypha.
What is fascinating about this story, though, is that the men who previously married this woman were killed by a demon called Asmodeus. This demon has historically been associated with lust.
Footnote: wikipedia.org/wiki/Asmodeus.
This could be a possible allusion to the earthly, sensual mindedness of the men in question. The Sadducees' approach to this subject was not that of the children of light, but of the children of this world. I think we can safely say that these Sadducees, who were of the ruling party in Israel that finally put Jesus to death, were not children of light. They denied the resurrection and the afterlife, and thus were completely earthly focused. If we add to this thought the phrase marry and give in marriage, in the context of Matthew 24, we once again see this term used in the context of the unrighteous, not the righteous.
For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noe entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24:38-39, King James Version.
Here the process of marrying and giving in marriage is associated with those who are not preparing for the coming of Christ. Their focus is earthly, not heavenly. After quoting the above passage, Ellen White says,
So it is today. Men are rushing on in the chase for gain and selfish indulgence as if there were no God, no heaven, and no hereafter. In Noah's day, the warning of the flood was sent to startle men in their wickedness and call them to repentance. So the message of Christ's soon coming is designed to arouse men from their absorption in worldly things. It is intended to awaken them to a sense of eternal realities, that they may give heed to the invitation to the Lord's table. Christ's Object Lessons, 228.2.
As the case of this woman was most likely not real, Jesus is responding to a group of men who are children of this world. He speaks to the issues needed in their situation, addressing their focus, which was earthly and not heavenly. Even if Jesus is not referencing a specific group of people who will not be married in the future life, those who have already been married and never marry another person have no need to be married in heaven. So either way, Jesus is not referring to all people in these verses. Taking all these things into consideration, is it possible that Christ is referring to a certain segment of people as being unmarried in heaven, rather than that everyone will be unmarried in heaven? It is they who have remarried who will be raised in an unmarried state, because the original divine pattern image is broken for those who are remarried. Are these thoughts in any way related to Paul's counsel that an elder should be the husband of only one wife? Is it also the reason why Paul says that the widows that are to be cared for in their community must have been the wife of only one husband?
Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, and not unless she has been the wife of one man. 1 Timothy 5:9, New King James Version.
Why would Paul say this? Why would he not encourage these women to get remarried? What relevance does it have? There are many questions like this that need consideration. Paralleling this question to the institution of the Sabbath, as I studied the subject of the feasts, one of the things that convicted me that the feasts were important was the principle contained in this statement.
Again, the people were reminded of the sacred obligation of the Sabbath. Yearly feasts were appointed, at which all the men of the nation were to assemble before the Lord, bringing to him their offerings of gratitude and the first fruits of his bounties. The object of all these regulations was stated. They proceeded from no exercise of mere arbitrary sovereignty. All were given for the good of Israel. The Lord said, "Ye shall be holy men unto me, worthy to be acknowledged by a holy God." Patriarchs and Prophets 3:11.2.
God's people were reminded of the sacred obligation of the Sabbath through the feasts. They were not arbitrary commands, but contained moral principles. I reasoned at the time that for something such as a feast to be able to point to the good and moral qualities of the Sabbath, it must contain within it good and moral qualities, otherwise it can't point to the Sabbath in a way that reaches the human mind and heart. I contend upon the same principle that in order for divine pattern marriage to reflect the perfect and eternal relationship of the Father and Son, that it must contain within it an eternal principle. Otherwise it can't point you to the original correctly. If the memorial of the original is only temporary in nature and of limited scope, then it reflects on the original the idea that it is temporary and limited in scope, and this would defeat the whole purpose of the image. Now ask yourself, could it be possible that Satan would want you to believe that divine pattern marriage is temporary and limited in scope to hide the true and eternal principle contained in the Father and Son relationship? Please consider this well. It needs careful thought. The Bible clearly reveals that Christ will be subject to the Father throughout eternity.
Now, when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him who put all things under him, that God may be all in all. 1 Corinthians 15:28, New King James Version.
Additionally to this point is the fact that angels are at work to bring the human race into a closer relationship with God than they themselves possess.
The angels of glory find their joy in giving love and tireless watch care to souls that are fallen and unholy. Heavenly beings woo the hearts of men. They bring to this dark world light from the courts above. By gentle and patient ministry, they move upon the human spirit to bring the lost into a fellowship with Christ which is even closer than they themselves can know. The Desire of Ages, page 21.1.
What is one area in which men are relationally closer to Christ than the angels? It is in the aspect of a divine pattern relationship, bringing oneness. Those who live in this relationship in heaven and the new earth will discern and appreciate the Father and Son relationship in a deeper way than the angels. God loves all of his children equally. This is never in question. Just to be in heaven with the Father and his Son is reward enough. Some people can't avoid the need for remarriage. For example, it is understandable for a widow with small children to remarry. But the key question here is this: is the image of God in the relationship of man and woman only a temporary one, and in heaven will there be no living memorials to the most critical relationship in the universe? All the Neoplatonists would say yes, the single life is far superior to the coupled life. All those who hold to the Trinity would see no relevance to a permanent memorial to the divine pattern. But those of us who see that the divine pattern is the key to life might well ask, is this pattern to be eradicated? Or will God preserve it through those who are married to one person in this life and will have no need to be married or given in marriage, for they are already in a relationship that was never broken here on earth, thus reflecting the eternal image of the Father and the Son? So when considering some statements from Ellen White,
We have the plain assurance of Christ that in the world to come the redeemed neither marry nor are given in marriage, neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. Letter 231, 1903. Medical Ministry, pages 100 and 101.
does this statement apply to those who only married once and have no need of remarriage?
In that case, they concluded that earthly relationships would be resumed, husband and wife would be reunited, marriages consummated, and all things go on the same as before death, the frailties and passions of this life being perpetuated in the life beyond. The Desire of Ages, 605.3.
Here, Ellen White speaks of several points concerning the Sadducees' beliefs connecting to the activities of husband and wife, saying it won't be the same in the new earth without sin as it is here now. Also, the marriage institution has fundamentally changed since there will be no procreation in the new earth. It will not continue as before. The father and son relationship is not sexual in nature. As married couples come into heaven, their divine pattern oneness will reflect this more perfectly. It is their oneness of heart and mind which become a lesson book to the universe, an eternal teaching tool to all creation of the divine pattern of Father and Son. Consider also if two people commit to each other until death do them part, and if what men call death is actually asleep, as the Bible teaches, then is it possible that couples can only be separated by the second death? For those who are in Christ shall not die, they only sleep. What could be the consequences of following this line of thought to its conclusion? It would mean that every action that a couple makes in this life would have eternal consequences or rewards. Couples would think of their relationship upon eternal principles, for they would see themselves as a reflection of the forever relationship of the Father and the Son. Would this cause young people to choose wisely? Would it help them to cherish their gender as a gift from God to display the divine pattern always? What would this do for the institution of marriage? What would happen if couples actually believed that they would live in this divine pattern forever to the glory of God and His Son? I don't know about you, but I find these thoughts to be beautiful. Such a system of belief would transform marriage in such a way as to cause couples to do what Jesus does with us to keep the relationship together. Wouldn't it? If you believe that your relationship on earth is only of temporary significance, then what ultimate loss is it to you? But what if this relationship was of eternal consequence, and that a couple might be granted the principle of representing the father and son relationship forever? Would this elevate the institution of marriage? Would it rescue it from Neoplatonic rubbish and place it on an eternal platform? The words of Jesus in answering the Sadducees are a test for the human race. We read in them what we truly think. Satan does not want any of us to entertain the idea that we might enter into a oneness of relationship that reflects God and His Son in a greater way than the angels do. Our Father wishes to invite us as men and women to come into a closeness that reflects the truth of Father and Son. Fallen human nature does not want this. It wants to be independent. It reflects the mind of Satan and restricts us to thinking we will be only as the angels. In this story, we are looking into a mirror because the original design of God for marriage is in conflict with what Christianity teaches about the woman who has 7 husbands. I contend that the discussion is restricted to those who have married more than once in this life and does not apply to those who only were married to one partner for life. Further evidence of the mirror operating in this story of the woman with 7 husbands is found in statements from the spirit of prophecy that clearly indicate that families will be reunited in heaven.
Some come to me saying, "Mrs. White, don't you want to call for a season of prayer, that the Lord would raise your husband from the dead?" No, indeed. The old warrior has fought his battles. One came to me and said, "We have selected a monument for your husband with a broken shaft. You may take that monument down, and you may put up a full, perfect monument, for," said I, "he completed his work." Yes, we worked together as long as God spared him, and he has been dead now 20 years. Said I, "We laid him in the grave to rest until the morning of the resurrection. Then he will come forth at the call of the trump of God, and we shall be reunited. Then we shall be a family reunited." Manuscript 230, 1902, paragraph 37.
Ellen White had complete faith that her family would be reunited in heaven as a family. In a letter to a grieving husband, she wrote similar sentiments.
We will pray for you and your precious little ones, that you may, by patient continuance in well-doing, keep your face and steps always directed heavenward. We will pray that you may have influence and success in guiding your little ones, that you, with them, may gain the crown of life, and that in the home above, now being prepared for us, you and your wife and children may be a family, joyously, happily reunited, nevermore to be separated. Second Selected Messages 262.7.
Once again, as Ellen White encountered those who had laid their children in the grave, she wrote with great confidence.
Thursday we went into Portland again and took dinner with the family of Brother Gowell. We had a special interview with them, which we hope will result in their good. We feel a deep interest for the wife of Brother Gowell. This mother's heart has been torn by seeing her children in affliction and in death, and laid in the silent grave. It is well with the sleepers. May the mother yet seek all the truth and lay up a treasure in heaven, that when the life-giver shall come to bring the captives from the great prison house of death, father, mother, and children may meet, and the broken links of the family chain be reunited, no more to be severed. Testimonies, Volume 1, page 654.2.
Does this not encourage us to hold fast our family relationships, knowing that they have the potential to be held forever?
Christ is coming with clouds and with great glory. A multitude of shining angels will attend him. He will come to raise the dead and to change the living saints from glory to glory. He will come to honor those who have loved him and kept his commandments, and to take them to himself. He has not forgotten them, nor his promise. There will be a relinking of the family chain. Maranatha, 308.2.
Such statements deepen my sense of yearning for my family, that we may all be together as a family in the heavenly city, reunited, but in the perfection of character and health. What a joy that will be. Beyond this, in the scope of this mirror, are some who have been placed in circumstances where they were forced into marriages while in adolescent life, physical or spiritual, either by parents compelling them or conversely abandoning them through their own divorce, leaving them vulnerable to be preyed upon. As we discussed previously, without the law there is no sin. It is the act of the will to rebel against what you know to be right that determines whether God is the one that joins a couple in the bonds of marriage. For some in these cases who emerge from a terrible situation into a loving marriage of decades in the love of the truth, these also may find a place in an eternal divine pattern relationship. It is not my place to speak to every situation. Only God knows the hearts of his children. I am simply offering to you the thought that some who have remarried under complex circumstances may yet find themselves in a divine pattern relationship beyond this present world. I don't wish to offer false comfort, nor do I wish to lay down rigid principles that do not take each case into consideration. I would simply offer that remarriage greatly reduces the divine pattern image of father and son. With respect to this message and movement looking forward, we do not judge or condemn the actions of the past, but call all to the true standard of marriage for these last hours of Earth's history. Remarriage has now become an impossibility for those who have entered the new covenant. Within the words of Christ is a message to those who break the divine pattern in marriage. Yes, you will be as the angels, and yes, I will bless you, love you, and welcome you as my precious child, and I will have wonderful things for you for eternity. But if you hold to the principles that bind my Father and I together, then you will be a memorial to me and my Father forever within the divine pattern. How do you read